And welcome to the Sunshine Sports Report. For this week, January, what is this? January 16th, 2020. It's been a busy sports week, and upcoming weekend, it'll be just as busy. Starting on Monday, sports week actually started last weekend, on Sunday with the NFC and AFC Championship divisional games, and they were exciting. Left nothing to be desired. Very exciting games. Some surprises, and I predicted that Kansas City would go on and win their game, which they did. They defeated a pretty tough Houston team. Tennessee continues to surprise. Tennessee knocked out a team that I thought that might go all the way to the Super Bowl. They knocked out the high-flying Baltimore Ravens, and so now the AFC Conference Championship is set up between Kansas City and Tennessee. Kansas City, it really started out. It was a weird game if you think about it, because Kansas City fell behind by 24 points. The score was 24-0 in favor of Houston, of all teams. And it wasn't the biggest come from behind win that a Houston team suffered the loss. Obviously, the Houston Oilers played the Buffalo Bills about 20 years ago, and they jumped all over the Buffalo Bills, and Buffalo wound up coming back from a plus 20 deficit. And in fact, Jim Kelly was on that team, but he didn't happen to play in that particular playoff game. His backup, Frank Reich, who is the Indianapolis Colts head coach, he brought the team all the way back. In this particular game last week, Kansas City trailed 24-0, and before you could actually sit down and really watch the game, it was 24-0. Second quarter, it was a tale of two quarters actually. Kansas City scored 28 unanswered points to go on to the lead right before halftime. And it continued on into the third quarter, fourth quarter. Kansas City, big winner, 52-31. In the other game, Baltimore, it just seemed like Tennessee defensively had something for them. Lamar Jackson just couldn't get a handle on what he does best, and that's run between the numbers. He could get outside of the numbers, but that left him. The defense was able to catch up with him when he got outside the numbers. What Lamar Jackson does best is turn out just outside the tackle and go upfield. Unfortunately for him, the Tennessee defense wouldn't allow him to do that pretty much. And you talk about running game. Well, Tennessee has basically a one-man running game with what's the running back's name? Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry. He ran for over 150 yards again. Well, and I think this is a string of games that he's run for over the last 3 or 4 games. Like I think the last regular season game, he ran for over 200 yards. The game that Tennessee needed just to get into the playoffs. And from there, he had another 180-yard game. And right now, it looks like it's going to be Kansas City playing the Tennessee Titans. Now, defensively for Kansas City, as far as I see it, Kansas City really can rush the passer. Now, can they stand up to that running game? That's the problem I think Kansas City will face. I think offensively they will be pretty stout. I think they'll be able to score. The thing is, will they be able to score enough points to hold off Tennessee? Because I think Tennessee will score at least 24 points because I think Henry will be able to run for probably another at least 125 to 140 yards. And but I like Kansas City overall in the AFC. Over in the NFC, Green Bay at Seattle, and I thought Seattle might be able to pull this one out. I thought Seattle would have a little bit something for them, but as it turns out, it was played in Green Bay, and I think that the home field advantage really helped Green Bay out. As far as Russell Wilson, Russell played well, but he didn't have quite enough. And I think what really hurt them was their running game. I know they had beast mode. Beast mode was okay, but he wasn't. He was like their fourth option. I think the first three running backs that Seattle had, all three of them went down with injuries, and so they had to call beast mode Marshawn Lynch out of retirement to be able to rush, and he, while okay, it wasn't enough for Seattle to pull off the win. And the other NFC game, which I think features probably the most complete team, in my opinion, in the NFL right now, is the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers took on a tough team, but they were, I think, defensively, they get after it. They have the pass rush. Their defensive backs are pretty strong. Garofalo is a fine passer. I think he's like 28 years old. So I think he's just now coming into his own. And 49ers have some pass receivers that you haven't heard about, but they're really good. So offensively, they're strong. Like I said, they defensively they get after you with pass rush. They've got a stout defensive line. The defensive line is strong on holding the running backs down. So I think when it's all said and done, after Sunday, after these games Sunday, it'll be the 49ers against Kansas City. And the room doesn't seem to like my prediction, but and I know that some people in the room like the Tennessee Titans, but I think overall I'm going with Kansas City and San Francisco. And give me a couple of weeks to think about it because that's how long it's going to take for them to play the Super Bowl after this weekend. So you heard it first. Kansas City, San Francisco in Super Bowl. And I think this will be the first time that Kansas City has played in the Super Bowl since they moved to Arrowhead Stadium. And keep in mind, they moved to Arrowhead in like 1971, 1972. So they haven't been in the Super Bowl for right around 40 years. And the 49ers haven't been there since the mid-90s. And so I see a 49er Chiefs game. Now, the week started out, Monday started out with the college football playoffs. Last week, myself and Marlon, we critiqued it and we thought about it for a while. And Marlon, he picked LSU because he said LSU just has too much offensively and they're too strong defensively. He also said that Joe Burrow, their quarterback, who is this year's Heisman Trophy winner, would be too much for Clemson. I thought Clemson would be able to handle it because they've been to the championship about 3 out of the last 4 years. Their quarterback hasn't started a game in which he lost, and actually the game started out. It started out pretty well for Clemson anyway. Clemson jumped off to a 10-0 lead. The defense got after LSU quarterback Joe Burrows, but Burrows was able to hook up with his wide receivers and tight ends, and Clemson did go on, like I said, to a 10-0 lead. But by the second quarter, the talent of LSU was just a little bit too much. It was too much for Clemson to overcome, and Clemson fell to the mighty LSU Tigers, and the LSU Tigers are now the national champions. And but that game, as exciting as that game was, it was exciting because you had two really talented teams play, and each team came up with exciting plays. But after the game, an alum of LSU kind of stole the show. Odell Beckham Jr., former wide receiver out of LSU, as the game ended and the teams were meeting on the field and everyone was walking off the field, he started handing out cash to the LSU players, which at the time I thought was kind of dumb. I didn't really understand why you're doing that in front of all these people. But then you thought about it, well, those players aren't going to come back, so they probably won't be gigged by the NCAA anyway because they're not going to play another college game. And actually, we got video here to show you that exactly what Odell did on the field after the game. And you go ahead and roll it if you want to. And there he is, Odell Beckham. Not much covered up sleeve, but he gets on the field with his cash, and he just starts handing out cash to everybody that he can see. Now I wonder what happens if he mistakenly gives out cash money to a player whose eligibility is he's still eligible and plans on coming back next year. Will that player be will he be suspended, or will his eligibility be revoked? So that's going to be interesting to see there. Now, it didn't stop just there though with Odell. No, it didn't stop there. After the on the field incident, he goes into the locker room where LSU is celebrating after winning the national championship, and nobody can quite blame him for doing that. And I guess, I don't know, I guess the moment the emotions got over, I don't know what he was thinking when he did this. Now you can see a police officer standing amongst the players.
And it shows Beckham.
And there are the players. They're talking, and there's the officer. What did he just do? Did you see that? Let's run that back again. We're gonna run that back again. Okay. Standing amongst the players, the officer's talking, the players are talking. Odell's talking to the officer, and so everybody's having a good time. Well, what happened there? Everybody's having a good time. Oh, he smacked him on his butt. Well, in college you have the sorority and fraternity stuff going on, right? So it's college, right? What's going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen. Odell has a warrant for his arrest. So now he's got to go to court in, I guess, New Orleans. Yeah. Oh, the room didn't know that, he got arrested for that, the assault. That's assault and battery. So now, after handing out, God only knows how much money on the field, he goes into the locker room. He's having a good time with the LSU players, the new national champions, a school that he went to, a team that he played for, and I know that you don't see it there, but they were smoking cigars, which is, by the way, against the law. That is against the law. But nobody's going to say anything about that. But what they did say something about was him assaulting and I'm not sure if that was a police officer or a security guard. Doesn't matter though. It's a law enforcement officer. So now, sometime in the future, sometime in the 2020, he's got to go before a judge and explain to the judge why he hit or patted the officer on his behind. And that's just plain foolishness. But that's just foolishness. And now, I guess Cleveland, the Browns have got to answer it because the reporters up in Cleveland are going to be asking the Browns about it. Also, nationally, the NFL will probably get involved in it. But this whole thing really, I think, is what's going to happen is because of the antics of Odell, LSU has got to get involved on the whole situation. The SEC's got to get involved in it. The NCAA is going to get involved in it. And I've heard rumors, I don't know how true they are, that the NCAA is indeed investigating at least a part about him passing out cash to some of the LSU players after the game. Because, like I said, most of those players either have no intention about playing another college football game again. But what about those who might have gotten money that aren't ready to come out? Because it looked like he was just doing it kind of indiscriminately, just willy-nilly. We're going to take a time out, and when we come back, we're going to continue to talk because this, even though throughout the year, December and January are usually the months we talk hot stove about baseball, trades, players signing with other new teams and players being traded to another team for this player and that player. Well, there's some hot stove issues in Major League Baseball that has nothing to do with transactions of players. And in fact, everything to do with the front office of a certain team and the managers of other teams. This is the Sunshine Sports Report on 904 Live.
If you've never been to CAPS before, the first time you walk through where the hostess stand is, through the walkthrough, and you see it hits you with surprise. And you look all over, you go, wow, this deck is huge. Look at that view. Oh my gosh, look at how many seats there are. Wow, look at that food. And it's hustle and bustle going on around you, and you're just taking it all in. And you can always tell a first timer at CAPS because they're just, eyes are wide open and they're amazed with just how this place is run, and it's exciting. It's exciting to watch. When we expanded our deck, it allowed us to have a lot more space. The tables are not crammed. There's plenty of room to walk through in any direction. It's really fun for kids to all kind of gather and play on the tree out there. It's growing out of the sand and they all climb on it. There's thousands of pictures being taken out there daily. They're right on the water. They go and dip their feet in and play in the sand. And the dock is a great place to wait. You can watch the dolphins. There's a lot of fish out there. Sometimes you see a shark. You can do a lot of boat watching. It's actually really nice, and the view is great. You're right in the sun. The weather is perfect. You get a cool breeze. What's nice is if you live on the Intercoastal, you can just pull your boat right into the dock, come in, eat, get back on your boat, and sail away.
Here are 3 things you need to know about Tunis Wings and Subs. They have 3 convenient locations on North Main Street, University Boulevard, and Sutel Drive. They have the best wings in Jacksonville.
My favorite kind of wings probably had to be the hot, just hot, regular hot.
It's not just wings, it's gyros, shrimp, Philly cheesesteak, salads, burgers.
The Tunis Gyro is my favorite.
It's to die for.
So dine in or drive through at Tunis Wings and Subs.
Want some good fried food? Come see Tunis.
Jacksonville's historic Riverside could be considered the cultural heart of the city. It's even been likened to New York's Greenwich Village with its eclectic mix of shopping and trendy restaurants.
I love Riverside because it is so different than any other part of Jacksonville.
Tree-lined streets and windows filled with charms make this a very walkable part of town. Fill up on boutique bargains in the bohemian Five Points neighborhood. Sip fresh squeezed juices in stylish Avondale, and stroll along the beautiful St. Johns River in the striking Memorial Park. Then slip indoors to the Sunray Cinema. Its historic beginnings are now highlighted by an offbeat style.
When the theater opened in 1927, it was one of the very first to have 2 things, one of which is sound and the other is air conditioning.
Today, the first thing you'll notice is personality.
So when people ask what kinds of movies we play most often, I say, hopefully the one that you want to see.
Sunray plays an attractive mixture of blockbusters to independent films with a goal of standing out from the crowd.
And anything that we do that is offered in a typical movie theater, we try to step it up a little bit, like we make our pizza in-house right down to the pizza dough. We have some menu items that give a little shout out to some of the things that make Jacksonville our home. There's a pizza named after a famous mayor. There's pizzas named after films that were made in the Jacksonville area.
Your food is brought right to your seat, and they do it with a conscience, serving popcorn in a bowl and drinks in glasses to minimize trash.
We try to make it as comfortable and as friendly and as personalized as humanly possible.
After a delightful date at the movies, head down the road to the classic Dreamette. They offer soft-served deliciousness with dips and heaping spoonfuls of toppings. The locals have been enjoying it for over 66 years. And trust me, you don't want to miss their most famous
Banana split in a cup.
sharing treasures in the River City. I'm Janice Jones in Jacksonville for Visit Florida.
Welcome to San Sebastian Winery. My name is Mike. I would like to personally invite you to come and join me and the others for a tour of our facility.
The tasting starts with a tour where we witness a video and then walk through our facility here and then come down to the tasting counter to taste 7 to 8 different wines.
Our job here at the winery is to show them a good time, also educate them no matter what their knowledge level is about wine. We always enjoy having them leave here with a little bit more than they came.
When we've concluded the tasting, we talk about taking some time to go through the store, go through the shop, look at the wine accessories that we have, decanters, glasses, Venturis, aerators. It's a wonderful experience.
We have one aspect of the building that is extremely special. It holds the barrels that hold our fortified dessert line of port, and it is a beauty. It's a young ruby port, and we're very proud of it.
We limit our tours to about 25 people for a reason. We do not want big, gigantic tours where you feel like you're just one of many.
I believe the best part of the tour is at the tasting counter, where we have a little bit more personal interaction with our customers.
I love to sit around, talk about good wine and how it's made, where it comes from, all of those good things. And I enjoy sharing that with my guests here at the winery also.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. For more information, please feel free to peruse the rest of the site or call 904-826-1594. Thank you very much, and come by and enjoy a taste of history.
And welcome back to the Sunshine Sports Report on 904 Live. 904 Live broadcasting on 904 Live, Facebook, 904 Live, YouTube, 904 Live, Periscope. If you like the show, please hit like, also share. If you have any questions, complaints, or statements, please drop them down in the comment section, and we will be happy to address them. Now, I don't know how many people have been watching this show, and we usually lead with football, and it's coming from Jacksonville. Football is usually king, and not usually, but always king. Let's be honest now. Football's always king. But if you've been watching the show, you know that I'm an avid baseball fan. I have been all my life. And usually this time of year is the year where you talk about player transitions between one team and another, a player negotiating, trying to get more money with their current team or a new team. And that's pretty much what the Hot Stove League has been over the last 30 to 40 years. Kind of exciting for some fans because now they'll be getting new players, influx of new players to make their team, their favorite team, better. Be some hand-wringing because some of the fans' favorite players are now leaving, going to other teams for more money or for whatever the case may be. But this year is a little different because we're not talking really about player transition or transactions this year. What we're talking about is punishment, and it's something that every sport and every league really cringes, and it's their biggest fear. It's their biggest fear, whether it be the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, hockey, soccer. It all has to do with cheating. And we know that players cheat, coaches cheat. That's why they have the rules. Rules so you know what you can and what you can't do, what you should and you shouldn't be doing. In football, it was back in the 50s, it was Alex Karras and Paul Hornung betting on football games. In the NBA, it was a referee betting on games that he was actually refereeing, so as soon as there is a hint that there could be something wrong, the particular league or the particular sport is going to take action. Now, it was rumored a couple of years ago that the Houston Astros were cheating. What they were doing were they were going into the video room and they were stealing signs from their opponents. Now, in baseball, there's nothing unusual about you trying to steal your opponent's signs. And if you're good at it, then you might be able to get a job in baseball, either as a player on the roster or as a coach. But it is illegal to electronically steal signs. And this is what the Houston Astros were accused of doing. So what they would do is, and this was player generated. So in other words, the manager, the general manager, really, they didn't have any part in it. In fact, the rumor I heard is that the manager, he didn't like it. He went so far as to break some cameras so that the players wouldn't do it. But they continued to do it. Unfortunately for the manager, A.J. Hinch of the Houston Astros, an investigation was done, and it was found out that the players were doing it. So what did the owner of, well, first of all, what baseball did was they suspended A.J. Hinch and the general manager for 1 year, one baseball season. Well, the Houston Astros, their owner said, well, Major League Baseball, I will do you one better. I'll do you one better than that. We'll just fire them. We'll fire both of them. So while they're not working in baseball for 1 year, when that year is up, they can't come back here. Now, it was asked, well, what about the players? Well, that's it. The players pretty much are done. We're done with the players. We've already done what we needed to do. We fired the general manager. We fired the manager. Well, hold up a second. Hold on, wait a minute. During the investigation, they found out that one of the coaches was also in on this. And keep in mind, the Houston Astros in 2017 won Major League Baseball World Championship. So in 2018, Alex Cora, the coach we're talking about, he got hired as the Boston Red Sox manager. So he profited by kind of cheating. So, but he was hired by the Boston Red Sox. And by the way, Petty, you may not know this, but Alex Cora's team, the Boston Red Sox, the 2018 Boston Red Sox, they won the World Championship. So the coach went from coaching the 2017 World Champions, which he cheated on, to manage the new 2018 Boston Red Sox World Champions. Well, now, ain't that something? So I believe he won Manager of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. So, what you know what they say though in NASCAR, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So nobody can accuse Joey. I keep wanting to call him Joey. His brother Joey Cora also played in the major leagues. But Alex Cora, the younger brother of Joey Cora, also played in major leagues. And plus, he was the coach. He coached in several different places, and was the Boston Red Sox manager. And no, I said was the Boston Red Sox manager. 2 days ago, after Major League Baseball continued their investigation, the Red Sox and Mr. Cora got together and said, well, you know what, maybe since we did win the 2018 World Championship, and this thing is going on in Houston, maybe it would be better if you didn't manage here anymore. So now, Alex Cora is no longer the Boston Red Sox manager. So that is the story, right? Yep, that's it. No more. Wait a minute. There is one more thing. Remember I said that no players were harmed in the filming of the investigation? That's not quite true. That's not true at all. As a matter of fact, the New York Mets hired, and let me make sure I got this right here, because the New York Mets hired a member of the Houston Astros baseball team to be their manager. He was a former New York Met player, so I want to make sure I get this right. Let me see. The Mets fire manager Carlos Beltran. Carlos Beltran was a really, really good player, switch hitter. Came over with the Kansas City Royals in, I guess, the late 90s. And he made a kill. He played with Kansas City, and he was, I think, traded to Houston, the same Houston team that we're talking about. And he went crazy. This guy, he hit so many home runs in the playoffs that they gave him the Mets gave him a huge contract as a player. And he played with the Mets, and he also played with the Yankees, and then he went back to Houston, and he was a member of that 2017 World Championship team that we're talking about. He was one of the ringleaders of the cheating, but he got a job just like Alex Cora got a job in 2018. In late 2019, I believe he was hired, and when I say he, Carlos Beltran was hired as the manager of the New York Mets. Well, the investigation rocks on and finds out that Mr. Beltran was a part of the cheating scam. So now the Mets have fired Carlos Beltran without him ever managing a single game. So now the manager, so let's take score. The original manager of the Houston Astros, A.J. Hinch, fired. Well, actually suspended and fired. The general manager, suspended and fired, and didn't really have anything to do with it. The Boston Red Sox manager, fired because he participated in it participated in the cheating. And the New York Mets new manager, Carlos Beltran, without managing one game, probably not even meeting a player, has gotten fired. So other than that, I think we're done. So does that save baseball? I'm wondering, because baseball, the last time I checked, was the most bet upon sport in America. Because you play 162 games. So you have at least 162 times to wager on a game. If you look at basketball, 82 games. You look at football, we'll say 25 games, because nobody's gonna really bet on preseason games, I don't think. So if you play, you're not even going to play 25 games if you go all the way to the Super Bowl. So 106, and folks, that's what sports is basically. Major league and professional sports, that's basically what they're built upon. They're built upon the opportunity for you as fans to put a wager down, whether it be legal or illegal. We know that's where football got, the NFL got its biggest kick, was in the 1958 NFL championship game between Baltimore and New York. That's where they got the biggest, because it was so heavily bet upon. Same thing with basketball. A cheating scandal almost killed college basketball back in the 50s. The NBA took a big hit because of the cheating scandal. Let's see how big a hit Major League Baseball takes upon it, because now we know what they say they're going to do. They're probably not going to do too much more to the players who are currently playing. And keep in mind that the Houston Astros, although they haven't won the World Championship since 2017, a couple of years ago, they're still one of the best teams in baseball. And they are always considered a contender. So if they win with whoever their manager is, will it be a taint on it? We'll wait and see. We said football is king in Jacksonville, Florida, 904. Football is king pretty much all across America. And today, this week, I don't know if you noticed it, but this week, the NFL named how do they phrase that? The NFL Hall of Fame century inductees, because the NFL, I guess, was started back in 1920, so this is their 100th year, and so in honor of the 100th year, they are naming, I guess, 20 players to the Hall of Fame other than the modern day players. So not only will you have the modern day players going in to the Hall of Fame in Canton this year, but you will have these other players and coaches and contributors going into the hall as well. And let me pull them up, because you might have heard of some of them. You might have. Now, nobody's accused the NFL of not knowing how to promote their product. Nobody has. And this weekend, they were at it. They were on the game, because two of the inductees are now commentators for the NFL. One of them is Bill Cowher, coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and also works on CBS. During the halftime of one of the playoff games, one of the members of the Hall of Fame, and let me see, Dave Baker, who is the head of the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame, he came on set and actually told Bill Cowher that he was being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I didn't see that. I didn't see that one. I just heard about it. Now, Saturday, that was Saturday. Sunday, he does the same thing. He goes on the set of Fox Sports at halftime and lets Jimmy Johnson know, Mr. Johnson, welcome to the Hall of Fame. So now Saturday and Sunday, you have 2 coaches that are going into the Hall of Fame. But remember, there are more players coming in. Because I read the story. I saw where Bill Coward had been inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I went to look to see who else had gone into to the Hall of Fame. And I couldn't find it. And then I realized the next day why I couldn't find it. Because the others hadn't been named until, or wouldn't be named until Wednesday of this week, which was just yesterday. And they were named. So we already know that Jimmy Johnson of the Miami Dolphins and of the Dallas Cowboys is in the Hall of Fame. Bill Coward, who has a house, by the way, for those of you who are living here in Jacksonville, he has a house here in Jacksonville. So I guess technically he's a resident, at least part-time, of Jacksonville. So that's a resident who is into the Hall of Fame. Joining Mr. Johnson is a former Raines High School student and player, Harold Carmichael. He was a wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys, but most of you know him from the Philadelphia Eagles. He is 6'8". He was 6'8", 225 pounds. He was the first, at least in my time, being the first really tall, lanky wide receiver. And he's elected. Duke Slater from the Milwaukee Badgers. Remember the Milwaukee Badgers? Well, he played from 1922 to 1925, so, you know, and he also played for the Chicago Cardinals. By the way, did you know the Cardinals started out in Chicago? No, you didn't know. Well, they did. The Cardinals have flown, they went from Chicago to St. Louis to Arizona, threatening to go to Los Angeles. Well, they started back in Chicago. Ed Sprinkle, a defensive end linebacker, played with the Bears from 1944 to 1955. Congratulations. Remember, we were talking about the cheating scandals in baseball and how Paul Hornung almost, they had to do something with Paul Hornung. Well, along with Paul Hornung, there was a fellow called Alex Karras. Alex got suspended along with Paul for a couple of years. Well, guess what? Mr. Karras also is now in the Hall of Fame. In fact, he was an active member of the NFL with the Detroit Lions from 1958 to 1962. 1963, he didn't play. You want to know why he didn't play? Yeah, he got suspended. But he continued his career until 1964, and from 1964 on to 1970. By the way, if Alex Karras sounds familiar to most of you actually probably don't even know him as a football player. You probably know him from the television show Webster. Yeah, he was the dad on Webster. That's Alex Karras. Alex was a colorful young man during his day, and he is going to be posthumously inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2020. So I guess it took him, he stopped playing in 1970, so it took him 40 years to get to the Hall of Fame. And it took this special induction ceremony to get him in because of the situation with gambling. And I remember Alex playing, and he probably deserved to get in just on his playing alone a long time ago. Bobby Dillon, remember Bobby Dillon? No, I don't. He started playing before I was born, and he stopped playing before I even started watching football. He played with the Green Bay Packers from 1952 to 1959, and he was a safety. You look like a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, Mr. Cameraman. No? Well, you Pittsburgh fans will be happy to know that one of your very own, Donnie Shell, I think he's one of the 11th, I think he's the 11th Pittsburgh Steeler from that team to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. He was the defensive back for the Steelers from 1974 to 1987. So congratulations, Mr. Shell. George Young. George Young was a general manager of the Baltimore Colts, Miami Dolphins, the Colts from 75 to 78. Am I looking? No, I'm not looking at that right. In 1968 to 1974, he was the Baltimore general manager. Yeah, he was the general manager that lost that Super Bowl to the Jets in '68. He went on to the Dolphins in 1975 to 78, to the New York Giants in 1979 to 97, and he worked in the league, the office, from 1998 to 2001. He goes into the Hall of Fame as a contributor. What about Cliff Harris? Remember Cliff Harris? No, Cliff Harris. Dallas Cowboy fans will remember him from 1970 to 1979. He was the defensive back safety for the Cowboys during the 70s, all during the 70s. He was the one. He was a curly-haired fella from the Midwest, and he was all pro 3 different times. He had 29 interceptions and 18 fumble recoveries for safety. Paul Tagliabue, commissioner from 1989 to 2006, and he took the NFL from one plateau to another. So he goes in as a contributor. So, congratulations to all of the inductees into the NFL Hall of Fame. And keep in mind that these are not the modern day inductees. Those will be announced, I believe, during Super Bowl weekend, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be a huge class because of the 100-year anniversary of the NFL. So we're going to take a timeout, and we will regroup, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk some more sports on the Sunshine Sports Report. You're listening to us on 904 Live. You're also listening to us on the Facebook 904 Live, Periscope 904 Live, and YouTube 904 Live. So if you didn't catch all of the show, no worries. We'll put it up. You can go back. You can go to 904 Live. You can watch it anytime. You can watch the whole thing at one time. You can watch bits and pieces of it. Drop us a comment, share, and like. What do y'all think about that cheating scandal? I want to hear from you. I want to see if you think it was such a big deal. Because remember, New England just went through a kind of a cheating thing. So as far as I know, nobody got fired. This is the Sunshine Sports Report on 904 Live.
I'm Mike Bishop. We're here at Big Storm Brewing Company, getting ready to can a storm. We're going to be canning our Arcus IPA today. We start harvesting the cans over here to go into our pre-rinser to make sure we have nice clean cans. Once we have that, we move it into our work table here, start collecting the cans, get ready for actual loading into the machine. Here we're filling them 3 heads at a time. So the cans fill, move over, come through and get seamed up. Checking the level real quick here. Pack tech them together. Finish 6 packs. Got our pallet of cases behind you there. There we go. Can you?
And welcome back to the Sunshine Sports Report. 904 Live. We're on 904 Live, aren't we? Yeah, we're on 904 Live. 904. That's the area code for the First Coast, Northeast Florida, home of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Duval County. And every year, Mark Lamping, who is vice president of marketing or something or another, I don't know exactly what his title is, but he's been with the Jaguars forever. He put the fans here in Duval County in a little tizzy. He pretty much, and you know what, I agree with him on what he's doing. Jacksonville, Florida or the proper of Jacksonville, Florida, the Duval County area is approximately one population of a little over 1 million people. By itself, Duval County or Jacksonville is not the smallest market in the NFL. It's not. It just isn't. But if you look around what's outside of Duval, if you go to Clay County, Nassau County, even St. Johns County, the population isn't that high. Green Bay, I think, is the smallest market in the NFL. But it's a suburb of Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a top 50, and I looked it up. It's somewhere in the top 50 of the largest markets in America. Duval County, Jacksonville has been, the team has struggled over these last 10 years. Most of the time finishing under 500 and out of the playoffs. Fans, especially over the last 30 years, have been used to winners. The teams that they follow, the Georgia Bulldogs, as far as colleges are concerned, the Florida Gators, the Florida State Seminoles, the Miami Hurricanes, even Alabama, even LSU. A lot of people who live in Duval County follow those college teams. It's a huge, Duval County has a huge hunger for high school football, winning high school football, winning college football. So when your professional team doesn't win, the fan base doesn't turn out. And that's true of just about any city, but it hurts Duval County because there's less people to draw from than, say, in even Cincinnati. If you lose 10% of the Cincinnati fan base, it hurts, but it's not fatal. If you lose 10% of Duval County, it stings a bit. Mark Lamping, and I heard this out of his own mouth, he said that they will do everything they can to avoid the Jaguars having to play a second home game in London. But I think it's inevitable because of the market size. When this team was awarded, this city was awarded a franchise, there was 5 other cities up for it. And I think there were 2 cities that were going to get it. Jacksonville put up an amazing presentation of what the stadium would be like. And it was so good that the city along with the well, actually, what also happened was the NFL was going to award the two franchises to two of the 5 cities. They did. They awarded one city, Charlotte, their franchise. But they really wanted St. Louis to be the second one. But St. Louis didn't have a stadium in mind. But they looked at Duval, and Duval gave the best presentation. But they said, you know what? Let's put this on hold, and we'll come back in 90 days. Well, they came back in 90 days, and not only was the presentation still great, St. Louis still didn't have a stadium in place. And not only that, during that 90 days, Duval County sold a high number of licenses for seating and paraphernalia. The team didn't have a name, but they still sold out paraphernalia. It was so great that the NFL said, you know what, since St. Louis isn't stepping up to the plate, Baltimore is not quite ready yet, and Nashville is not there yet. We're going to award a franchise to you. And there was a third thing they were looking at. St. Johns County was the largest during that time, 1993, 94. St. Johns County was the largest growing county in America. It was projected to be, well, I don't know exactly what they were projected to be, but it was projected that the NFL said, you know what, we're gonna do it. We're gonna put a team in Duval County because of the stadium, because of the paraphernalia that the fan base bought, and because St. Johns County was up and coming, not only up and coming, but financially one of the more wealthier counties in the country. Well, unfortunately for Duval and for the rest of the country, the recession hit and it slowed down. The economy is now better. St. Johns County is prospering, but not at the rate that they originally thought back in the mid-90s. So Duval, you know, you're going to have a winning team, you're going to have a losing team, you never know. Your teams are always going to fluctuate up and down. But I think it's probably inevitable if Duval County is to keep the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're going to have to share them with London for the foreseeable future. This has been the Sunshine Sports Report with Greg Daniels and 904 Live Periscope, 904 Live YouTube, and 904 Live Facebook. Until next week.
Have you here at the Alhambra Theater today. I think you're going to enjoy your experience. We've got a great show and a great meal prepared for you. Sit down, relax, and try the Alhambra like you've never seen, heard, or tasted before.
Welcome to the Alhambra.
Hi there, welcome to the Alhambra. Could I get the last name of your reservation? Here's your receipt and playbill. You're welcome to go ahead into the lounge and have a drink and relax.